right, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today's guest is Brittany Charboneau, and Brittany is an elite runner, also a coach, a performer, a comedian, and an all-around awesome person with a great story to tell. So, Brittany, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so delighted to do so. So, let's go into. Can we go into a little bit of your background to start with, and what was it? What was it like growing up for you? What was your family influence, and how did that help you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I was born and raised here in Denver. That's where I live currently now. I've lived in other places throughout my life, but born and raised here in Denver. And it was kind of interesting. My parents divorced when I was 6 or 7, I think. And so I was kind of splitting my time for a few years between Denver and Kansas City. My mom and I moved to Kansas City after that. And so I was kind of constantly back and forth between Denver and Kansas City throughout the year. I have older siblings. So looking back on that, I know that kind of shaped how I had to be adaptable and just kind of go with the flow. I'm obviously the youngest child also. So I feel like the youngest just kind of get hauled everywhere. So you kind of just get used to being on the go and not really knowing what's next. You're just kind of in it for the fun of like, I don't know, I'll just kind of go with whatever comes next. So yeah, so it was just kind of in that realm, and then started running when I was about 13 in 8th grade, just like a fun social thing to do. Ran through high school and college, and then started to get into marathons after college. I still had a corporate job. I was doing sales and marketing, and then it's kind of evolved to where I am now. But in terms of my upbringing, it was kind of, just like I said, just going with whatever my siblings were up to in terms of their sports. Like I was always just there to watch and cheer. And then just going back and forth between 2 different cities all the time. It was, just I don't know. It was just kind of like what I did. So it wasn't unusual for me. It was just kind of like, okay, today I'm this month I'm in Kansas City, next week or next month I'm in Denver. So
Wow.
yeah.
So a lot of flying or driving?
Both.
Both, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Both, yeah. So you have a couple of other siblings?
I do. I have an older brother who's 12 years older and an older sister who is 10 years older, both full siblings. So I was definitely, my mom says I was an unexpected blessing.
Yeah, the youngest one sometimes is, yeah.
Yeah, yep.
So now your brothers and sisters were much older when your parents split up then.
Yeah, yep. I think my sister, it was going into her senior year of high school. And my brother was already in college. So I was I think I was third grade when they officially divorced. So yeah.
Yeah. So you actually relate to that as an experience that gave you adaptability. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think that that's just something that's just, I don't know, you obviously don't have any control of it as a child. So it's kind of like I didn't know any different. My friends, a lot of my friends, all of their parents were still together and mine were split up. And so I just didn't know any differently. And I thought it was actually pretty fun getting to go between Denver and Colorado, and like splitting time between my mom's house and my dad's house. So it was actually kind of novel and kind of fun. And it also helped me remember that home is where I make it and home is who I'm with, so it didn't necessarily matter. And I still really think I take some of those things that I learned during that time into my life now, especially with racing and traveling, and just kind of being able to be more adaptable and bounce around.
Yeah, so it certainly fit in with that. So your experience at both places was positive then, Kansas City and Denver.
Yeah, for the most part. There's, certainly ups and downs, but yeah, for the most part, I lucked out that I had both parents that just were super supportive of everything, loved me so much, had my siblings, had lots of extended family. So I felt like I was had a good like network of family members in both locations, wherever I was at the time.
Yeah, and you actually run with your sister a little bit, don't you?
I do. Yep. We call she's 10 years older, but we say that we're twinsies. We call each other twins. We just say that I cooked longer in the womb because
Yeah.
we look the same. We are so similar. We're different, but we're very similar. But yeah, so she and I try to get to run together at least once a week and just hit the trails together and just zone out and train, and not even train, just run together and just enjoy that time together. But we've always been pretty close, even though we've had that big age gap.
Yeah. So she has quite a bit of running ability too then.
She does. I'm so impressed with her. She did her first marathon a few years ago. She's just started to trail run over the past few years as well. So she has, and that was very out of her comfort zone as well. When I started trail running, it was really out of my comfort zone. And then she kind of branched into it as well, and we both just loved it. So yeah, she's amazing. Her goal is always to at least be able to just go out and run 10 miles at any given time. So, and she's a mom of 3, so I don't know how she actually does it. So I am impressed by her.
Yeah, it's tough. She might have to taper before she does her sessions with you, huh?
Yeah, exactly. She might take the day
Yeah.
off before.
Yeah. Yeah, being a mom of 3 and doing all that, that's amazing. So did you spend
Yeah.
some time in Fort Collins?
I did. I went to Colorado State
Yeah.
for college, and then my first big kid job out of college was in Fort Collins for 2 years as well.
So did you start your running career there in Fort Collins?
I did. So I actually walked onto the team as a junior. I didn't know that you could. I thought you had to be, top of the state or anything like that to even run on the team. So I didn't join CSU's team until my junior year of college.
Okay, so then you realized you could do it and you got it. So, but you were training on your own.
Loosely. Like I remember I was running because I still enjoyed running, but I was also running because I was trying to run off my beer and my pizza and all of that those early years. So I was still running a little bit, but I remember when I walked onto the team, I didn't know that they were having tryouts until
Oh.
the week before.
Mhm.
And
There we go.
so I remember running about 20, maybe 25 miles the 1 week, and then the next week I was on the team and I was running 65, and that was crazy. So I remember that because I was maybe running a couple days a week. Maybe my longest run was 6 miles tops before that. So nothing, and certainly no speed work, nothing like that. So that was certainly a jolt to the system.
Absolutely, yeah. I was wondering about that when you said you walked on and you've been training on your own a little bit, because it's such a shock to actually get into a real, let's say, rigid training schedule like that, and not have
Yeah.
the not, it's just a huge leap.
It was. I didn't quite know what I was in for. I thought I was going to walk on and it was just going to, I knew it would be challenging. I knew I was walking onto a D1 school, but I don't know what I was quite thinking that I was like, I literally hadn't done workouts. And then it was interesting too, because when I had joined the team, I'm competitive. And so I just expected that I would start like rising my way to the top of the team. And that was a very rude awakening very quickly that no, this takes a lot of work. And these girls have been putting in years of work already. It doesn't happen that way. So that was a good moment for me that I often look back to, of remembering that things take time and that your body takes time to get to certain levels. So that was kind of my first experience with patience, I would say, in running.
Absolutely. So, what did that do? You weren't doing any speed work, and that must have been a shock. And then, what did that do to your entire metabolism, your entire energy, your ability to do your studies, and just making that huge jump like that?
Yeah, it was exhausting,
Yeah.
as you can imagine, because I went into cross country season. So it wasn't even jumping into track season. I was jumping into full blown cross country season. So it actually really helped me in a lot of ways. It helped me with my schedule, prioritize, my schooling. I think because I had 2 years under my belt of college, I kind of knew how to manage my course load. I knew how to
Okay.
manage my schedule. So adding running in just helped prioritize it a little bit more. And then it also just taught me how to, it really made my college experience come alive. I felt like I was at a really big school. I didn't really know where I fit in. I didn't know who my people were. And then all of a sudden I had this team of men and women that I got to they were just my friends, and they liked the same things I did, and they had the same goals as I did. So it really made my college career feel like it had a little bit more purpose, and I felt like I really belonged to the school versus just being a number at the school.
Yeah. So how did they take in this person who just jumped into the pool, and just kind of shocked themselves with the experience, and obviously couldn't compete with the very, very, very top people at the school yet?
Yeah,
How did they take you in? How they how they help you with that?
I think there was a mix of people. There was a mix of reactions, as you can imagine. I think there are the scholarship athletes that are seeing. There was, I think maybe 4 or 5 of us that walked on, and they were underclassmen, whereas I was an upperclassman. But I think the scholarship athletes were certainly. It can be threatening, not knowing, who these athletes are. They're walking on. They don't really have anything to prove. I mean, they have nothing to lose. So I had no money on the line, nothing like that. I was just there to just for the sake of it. So I think there was a bit of the competitive territorialness at first, and also just seeing, like, was I willing to do the work? Was this walk on coming out of nowhere? Was she just here to just try and like get some social training out of this, or was she serious about competing? And I was certainly one that I was certainly there. Yes, I wanted to have the team aspect. I wanted to socialize, but when I got down to it, I wanted to compete, and I wanted to also be at the top where they were, and I wanted to be on the traveling team. So once I started to show them that I was there to do the work, that's where I feel like friendships and support really came alive, because it wasn't just, I was walking on
Mhm.
just because I just like was looking for something to do.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always that moment where somebody comes in from the outside, and you yourself have to adapt to all the knocks and bruises, so to speak, and
Yeah, totally.
and actually be out there in the dirt doing things. And
Yeah, yeah.
and at the same time, then people get used to who you are and whether you're really going to make yourself fit in or not.
Yes,
And
yes, totally.
yeah, so that's I think we go through that a lot of times in life. Anytime we have to make a transition. But so there were some other people that walked on. Did that help you a little bit?
It did. It was really comforting knowing I wasn't the only one, and it kind of gave a gauge for where I was at in terms of my fitness. It was kind of, oh, I'm not in a actually that bad of a place fitness wise, even though I've only been running like 20 miles a week. Um, so it was nice. It was nice to have those people that knew what it was like to kind of feel like we were threatening or stepping on toes, or just kind of bouncing questions off. Like, this feels like it's a crazy workout or a crazy run. Am I nuts? Or like, is this actually a really hard workout and we just aren't used to it? So it was really nice to have those girls there that were also in my boat too.
So this gets us to something here because as a little person, you were you interested in gymnastics?
Yes, I
Yeah,
was.
but as I understand, uh, as a young girl, you were interested in gymnastics, but you also had the word Olympics in mind when
I
you
did.
even at that point.
I
And
did.
a lot of people, especially little kids, say, "Oh, boy, I want to be in the Olympics," or "I want to do this or that," but they don't actually do it. But here you are. Uh, now you. What switched your interest to running?
So yeah, when I was younger, I remember watching the 1996 Olympics that were in Atlanta, and that was the first Olympics I remember, and I watched the women's gymnastic team win gold that year,
Mhm.
and I was just captivated. I had never seen anything like it. They were like these small, petite things, just like me, even though I was younger. And I just fell in love with it. And I also loved this idea of the Olympics. Like, I didn't know that there was like this event that all of the top in their sport come together in the world and they compete in their sport. So immediately I was in my backyard, set up this really unsafe balance beam on just a piece of wood, and like I was doing like a floor exercise routine. This lasted for years. I created this annual event every year with my neighbors called the Junior Olympics in my backyard. And it was just fun. Like, I just was competing for this backyard Olympics. And it's funny, looking at it now. I'm in my art room right now looking at these Olympic rings that I have on my wall that I had as one of my prop as part of one of my shows a couple years ago of the direction I hope to head. And yeah, I quickly fell off of gymnastics. So I had this Olympic gymnastic goal. I don't really think it was like a dream. I never really thought that I would ever actually pursue the Olympics. Like that was never something in my actual brain that I was like, I have the capability of that. It was just fun for those few years. And then gymnastics was really expensive. It was just not something that we could make work in our family. And so I just kind of like grew out of it. Still loved watching it every 4 years on the in the Olympics. And then as I got into middle school, I just got into running. And then, but even then, I mean, if you would have asked me, gosh, 5 years ago, if I ever would thought I would be as close as I am to an Olympic dream or working towards it, like actually putting in the work to maybe making that happen, I never would have believed it, even 5 years ago, never. And so it's just really cool that, like I had it, I feel like I had it in my bones and I had it in my gut when I was little, even though it's a different sport, I just had that drive in there and that kind of just like belief that maybe I could go for it. And now here I am, having done my first Olympic trials last year and then certainly having 2024 ahead in my vision is just wild. It's so fun.
Yeah, we're halfway to 2022, so 2024 is not that far away.
Already, I can't believe it. I know.
Yeah. So, yeah, so from there, what you raise is that it takes a lot to actually make the top of something. And it takes not only your gift and your ability, but it takes a lot of people. This didn't fit into your family's ability to support you. And most schools have a running program of some sorts.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so it just takes a lot. It takes a whole community and it takes your own gift and your own dedication, but you can't do it by yourself.
That's so true. It's so true. I've got an unbelievable team on my side now, and that I never would be where I am without, my coach, my strength trainer, my dietitian, physical therapist, massage therapist, certainly my husband. All of these people come into the mix that you just don't see all of that behind the scenes. You know that athletes have coaches, but I think you miss a lot of times the insane amount of people it actually really does take. I mean, it takes a village to make a successful athlete, in my opinion.
Yeah. So let's kind of hit a couple more highlights of your career here, and then we get into some really good stuff.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. But so you got into a school program because that's where the running programs are, and then but you don't usually have trail running in schools, so you didn't discover that right away. But trail running, I mean, it's a wonderful thing to be out there, covering miles in nature. So how did you discover trail running, and how did you discover that you also like that? Because there's a technical aspect to that doesn't just require speed. It requires real focus.
It certainly does. Yes. So I actually, so it's so funny because I'm a born and raised Coloradoan. But I used to say that I was the world's worst Coloradoan because I never went to the mountains. Like I wouldn't even go to the foothills that are 15 minutes from our house because I was afraid of nature. I was afraid of animals. I didn't even realize what a world trail running is. And my coach has been she's been a trail runner for ages and loves it. And I was coming off of an injury in 2019. I had to pull out of the London Marathon because I had a SI injury. And she was like, we have to get you on softer surfaces. All you've been training on is hard cement and asphalt. And she was like, we have to get you on trails. And I was so adamantly against it because I thought that I had this stigma in my brain. Yeah, I had it in my brain about how different it would be. Like I didn't think that you could go fast on trail. And then I also thought that trail runners were just a different breed of people. And I just felt like I was like, I don't fit in with that. They are much like grittier and hardcore than I am. I'm not interested in that. But finally she convinced me and I had a really great short debut trail season. That was in 2019. And then last year with the pandemic, because all of the road racing had shut down, I just hit the trails hard and realized that my road skills actually work amazingly on the trail. And I'm actually great at it. And I, most importantly, just love it. There is nothing like being out on those trails and still getting to go fast. I think that that's what's I was so surprised by, because I think in my head I thought, really, when I hear trail running, I think ultra distance. So I'm thinking 50 to 100 milers and going quote unquote slow. And for me, I'm like, I just really, really love going fast, especially right now. And so I didn't think that you could go fast on trail. I didn't realize there were trail marathons or anything shorter. So now that that has kind of come to life, it's kind of this wonderful blend of both worlds right now, of my speed coming from road, and then certainly having my mental training coming from road and getting to translate that from trail. And then I'll do that again this fall, as I head back on a road marathon. So it's kind of just this wild world that has come together, but been so grateful for trail.
Yeah. In terms of injury, I think that variety is really good for the body.
It's so good.
Yeah, because you're stuck in a straight on pattern, when you're road racing or track racing.
Yeah.
But, well, you do have some curves.
Yeah. Just keep
turn
turning
left a lot.
Yeah.
But you have to move your hips and your pelvis and everything in a lot of different ways on the trails. It's really good for your body. Really good for your mechanics on the track too, I'm sure. But the hills, yeah, there's some really good functional strength work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And you get to run faster downhill than you can run on a track.
Yeah, that's what's fun. Yeah, getting to fly down that. And then I think being distracted, I love trail because it makes you must be so present.
Mhm.
Otherwise you're going to fall on your face. If you are not paying attention, you're going to hit that rock and you're down, So I think for me, that has helped so much in making sure I'm staying present. There's a lot of times I get in my head on any speed work on road or something like that, where I'm just getting so in my head about like competing against other people, or are my splits fast enough, or any of these things. Versus trail, it's just kind of like, I just have to make sure I'm not like knocking my toes, or I'm watching for that boulder, or I'm watching this switchback, or whatever it is. So it's been, I think, really good mentally for me as well.
Yeah, it's definitely works on your agility, works on your ability to support and control your head and where you're looking and everything. But can you give us a couple tips then on running uphill, or on of course you can run uphill on the road, but on running uphill on trails, and what's your strategy? Of course, I know you have to look out ahead a little bit to avoid the rocks and the roots and so on. And that's the main strategy, paying attention. But do you have any other strategies for the way you like to step? Would you rather step on a route, go over it, or go around it? Or what do you think it's, what mentally do you do when you see a big route coming up?
Yeah.
You want to get right on it where you know it, or?
Sometimes I like to go for the path of least resistance. So sometimes if there's a particularly technical spot coming up but there's a smoother spot around it, sometimes I'll try and hit that, just because I'm like, I'd rather take an extra step than risk catching my toe. But then other times I also say in my head, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So I'll just go straight up, and I'll just like try and, short step over different rocks, or, use that route as a step up. But it's so funny, in my very first trail race, it was the Leadville Heavy Half Marathon in 2019. I remember running up it's basically a big wide road to start for the first maybe like 3 to 5 miles. And I remember running up that in my road style, in the sense of, I'm just going to go very fast up this. And I remember getting to about mile 2.5 maybe. And my coach was luckily on the side of the road there. And I was like, Jenny, I don't know how to get up this hill. Like, I don't know how to do this. Like, it was so steep. And so, because we hadn't practiced like any trail running, I had signed up for this race 3 weeks earlier. And she was like, short, quick steps. And that's always been my mantra. I was back in Leadville training this past weekend. And that's always been my mantra, is short, quick steps whenever I'm going up a big climb, because I feel like I'm exerting less energy by taking a bigger stride. So that's like been my kind of mantra as I'm going on hills, or doing big climbs, is, and it's using my glutes. It's not using my calves on those short, quick steps,
Yeah.
because that's a good way to burn yourself out real quick. So yeah, just short, quick steps, and just focusing on using my glutes to help power me up
Yeah.
the climb.
Yeah. So shorter steps is kind of using leverage. Like I could not lift 2,000 pounds, but I could lift 20 pounds 100 times. Otherwise, I couldn't
Yeah,
do it. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so, and then bringing your heels down a little bit so you're not on the calves all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's pretty cool. Excuse me. So let's go on to where you discovered FKTs.
Yeah.
How'd you make that discovery? During the pandemic, that I think more than one person discovered that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea. Like I said, the road races were shut down, so I had no idea that we were just kind of, I was just hoping to just go, hopefully race some trail races, because those were still open, and then just kind of just challenge myself on the trails. And so my coach's husband actually was the one who said that I should try for these FKTs. And of course, I had never heard of them. And so he was like, yeah, they're basically just records, like course records on different trails that are really challenging. And I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. Of course, having no idea what I'm getting myself into. So I think I set 3 FKTs last summer and attempted 4. So that was a blessing also, because that was just giving me something to focus on in training, and just having almost a fun goal, because it was just racing against myself and racing against a previous time. So I just got to go out and just knock out a fast FKT. And I was really proud of myself, because I had never done runs on trail that long ever. Like my longest distance one was a 28 miler. And that to me was so far out of my comfort zone, because I was navigating that completely by myself. I ran the entire thing by myself. And that was the first time I'd run the whole thing. So it was cool, because it was, yeah, like I feel like putting myself in with the mix of other really great trail runners. So I loved just going for those FKTs as like a very unusual goal last year.
Yeah. So you completed, what was it, the 4 loops one? Was that Maroon Bells or?
Yep, it was a Maroon Bells 4-pass loop, just outside of Aspen.
Yeah.
Yep, that was my biggest one I did last summer.
Yeah. And so you did 3 of them. I knew that you'd done a couple of them, but what's the one that you didn't set?
I didn't set the Presidential Traverse. So one week I set the Boulder Skyline Traverse FKT, and then in that same week, a couple days later, we drove all the way out to New Hampshire to try and set the Presidential Traverse FKT. And at this point, I was thinking, I'm killing it. Like I'm doing so well with these FKTs. Like every single one I run, I am accomplishing it. And so we go out to New Hampshire and run the Presidential Traverse, which was unlike any trail I'd ever run. I mean, that is straight up granite the entire time. So that was unbelievably challenging. It was very humbling. I think I still was top 4 time overall, like ever, or something like that, but it was so hard. So I was like in over my head with that. So that was a humbling experience for sure, but I was happy I did it. It was still amazing to get to run that.
So that one might take more than one try, then get a little bit of experience on the course.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, there was a woman who set the FKT that morning. So she was actually, I didn't know it. She was setting the FKT like a couple hours before I did. And I think she completed it 40 minutes faster than I did or something. I mean, it was unbelievable. She is a local out there. So that was cool, at least that she said it, and she certainly trains that. She knows how to run on it, and I, coming from our trails in Colorado, had no idea what I was doing. So but it was fun regardless.
So what is your interest in trail running as far as maybe running a little bit longer distances than you have?
Pretty minimal, to be honest. I just did my first 50K last month, and that was great. I loved it. It was a really nice transition from the marathon to the 50K distance, but I don't really have any desire or interest to get into the longer stuff. I know there's a lot of opportunity there, but to me, that doesn't sound like anything I'm interested in pursuing. Like I'm really excited to keep on the quote unquote shorter stuff, anywhere from that 18 to 50K, if 18 mile to 50K distance is kind of my sweet spot. And I think also I still got a lot of big goals on road. So I feel like keeping in that realm is a really nice complement to the goals that I still have on road as well.
Yeah. So let's get into, I know that you have a coach and you also are on a coaching team. You are a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And so talk to me about as you discovered a coach in college, I guess, yeah, you ran in high school and then you ran in two years in college. So as you discovered your coach there in college, what was that like? What did you think the coach's main role is? And what do you think the main role of a coach is?
Yeah, that's a great question. A coach's role, I know from my own experiences and being a coach, is really about helping the athlete develop as a person overall. I think, yes, the athletic piece is there. At least from my experience, I've made massive growth with when I've had really great coaching. So in fact, when I was in middle school, go back to even middle school, that first year that I ran, I just had wonderful coaches that eighth grade year, and they were the ones who encouraged me to join cross country the next year. Of course, I had never heard of cross country. I was running track in eighth grade and had no idea. And they encouraged me to do track or cross country in high school. And they convinced me, they kind of gave me that boost of confidence that I could do it. So it kind of started there. I had great coaches that just encouraged and pushed me. And then same in high school, I had really great coaches that stretched me out of my comfort zone. I was an 800 runner and certainly a cross country runner. And I had a coach that pushed me into the 300 hurdles, which were really fun. And of course, I'm, really short. So I thought that, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get over these hurdles. But of course, they're not that tall. So that I had those coaches that pushed me in that. And then I got to college and it was a little bit different experience. I didn't have a great, I don't think that was the greatest coaching system or environment for me, which I think was a great example of how coaching can be a little bit more detrimental, and where there's certainly red flags with female runners, especially, that need to be top of mind, that I think I try to make sure are really important to me in terms of making sure nutritionally I'm eating enough, girls are eating enough, mental health, just all these pieces. And then just the team dynamic of motivating athletes. So college was a little bit different for me. I walked away from college feeling really mentally burnout, not positive, was not interested in competing anymore, things like that. And then, so I didn't have a coach for years after that. I was just self-trained. I was just using training plans online. And then I won my first marathon here in Denver in 2017, self-coached. And I met my coach at the awards banquet, my now coach at the awards banquet, from that marathon. And she just connected with me. She just has this way of motivating me with things that, like, helping me grow as a person, and also helping me remember that running is not life. Running is not the end all be all. I mean, it's a part of who I am. It's not who I am. And challenging me again, just like my younger coaches, challenging me to get on trail or try FKTs or do distances that might be a little bit more challenging. And really just helping me develop as a more well-rounded person. And like tuning into who I am and what my needs are and what motivates me. So I've just been so lucky. I've been working with her for 4 years as my coach. And then I've been coaching with her for, over 2 years now. So I kind of try and take those same principles, this mishmash of all of these different coaching styles that I've had, that I've loved, and then just being mindful of the ones that I certainly didn't connect with, and trying to maybe not incorporate those into my coaching style with my athletes that I have.
Yeah. So that's actually something I wanted to ask you about. Now, I didn't know that you came away from college a little bit discouraged in terms of your running and so on. But if you hire a coach for yourself, that's one thing. you'd expect certain things. But if you're a little pop up there, but if you're in a system, if you're in a college system that's competitive, and that coach's job is based on winning so many meets, then there's a conflict there. And so I really wanted to know what your experience was there, and whether I guess in terms of that, you felt like the conflict was kind of moving to one side there, rather than sometimes a coach will really try to balance that and will still try to be the best they can to develop their athlete as a person. And sometimes the system, I think, overwhelms them. And I think that's a big part of your story. So could you tell me how different your coach is from that philosophy of just win?
That's a good point, is that certainly when a coach's job is on the line, and when it's their responsibility to bring back titles and bring back, national champions, that's a lot of pressure, I can imagine. And that's a lot of livelihood on the line. And I think looking at so my coach is she almost has to rein me in, because I want to win and I want to set records and I want to do all of these things. And she's the one that has to remind me that that's great, but it's not the only piece. She's so process focused. It is about the process getting there, not the results. The results come, and that's great. But I mean, you're spending 99% of your time in the process, and then that event is that 1%, that icing on the cake, that moment that you get to just put that cherry on top of all of your hard work. And I think that keeping that in perspective, I think it's just a different style. I think in college, it was all about winning. It was all about winning at all costs, and that includes at the expense of the health of the athlete. I was certainly not healthy physically. I was not healthy mentally. And now that is number one priority for my coach now, is I want to get you to the starting line healthy and happy. Those are the most important things, because again, running is not it's not worth breaking your body. It's not worth breaking your mind. It's supposed to be this, in my opinion, it's supposed to be this challenging, fun thing that we get to do. And especially at an elite level, you don't have an entire lifetime to accomplish the things you want. You do have a limited time. And I remember looking back a couple years into my career thinking, gosh, I don't want to have the same experience in college, looking back thinking, I wish I would have had more fun with this. I wish I would have enjoyed it more, because you never know when you won't get to compete at an elite level. And this is such an opportunity that not many people get to experience. And I just want to soak up, every experience that I've got. And my coach is just she's a constant reminder of that for me. She's the one that's like, you're getting too stressed. You're getting too focused.
So along that point, but a little bit off to the side, you said there were red flags for female athletes. Were they treated differently in terms of weight and so on in college?
Yeah, I think that there were so many things that were overlooked that I think that shouldn't ever be overlooked. I think there were too many of us that were struggling with eating disorders. There were too many of us that didn't get our periods. There were too many of us that were breaking, that had stress fractures, things like that. And that was kind of the baseline, because some of our best athletes were the thinnest, they were the fastest. And that's what our benchmark was. And that was kind of what we were striving towards. And it was just kind of not a well-rounded, not a holistic approach that was, I feel like, healthy for females. And certainly then I was just like a mental mess. And especially when it came to competing, it was just so intense, and it was so much pressure and all of this for college athletics. I even at this elite level, I'm in massive races.
And CSU is not Villanova.
Yeah, right, exactly. And even if it is, even though I'm at, competing in these really, global and worldwide stages now in terms of running, I still don't think it needs to be that high stress. I still think things can be accomplished without having this massive amount of pressure. And I've gone through waves of that. I'm not saying I'm, competing in these races and I'm able to hold it together and I'm just playing and I'm having fun the whole time. It's certainly a lot of pressure, but I think having a coach that is more mindful of how to keep that in check and how to make sure that my body's holding up, otherwise I can't do these big races, has just been really, really pivotal.
Yeah, I really believe that you can do better showing up healthy with a good mentality than
Yeah,
if you're a little bit undertrained than you can if you're really trained. You've gone through all these tough workouts. You can do a tough workout, but you're just exhausted and your bones are weak. Yeah, it's just
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So we talked there about societal pressures on the coach themselves. Occasionally, there's a coach who will actually win a lot by not emphasizing winning, but they're kind of rare. But they
Yeah.
emphasize, doing the best you can, putting in the work, and focusing and things like, and then go home.
Hmm.
But excuse me, I'm thinking of some in particular. But can you give me an example of a race that maybe you won, or maybe you did very well in, but you were under so much stress and you ended up kind of hating it?
Yeah. I have two specifically that come to mind. One was the Kansas City Marathon in 2017.
Mhm.
It was right after I quit my job to become a pro. I had literally just gotten married a few weeks before, and I had just been working with my coach. This was our very first training cycle that we'd been working together. And I desperately wanted to win this race, and I desperately wanted to qualify for trials at this race. And the Kansas City Marathon is a very hilly course. Like, it's not a flat, fast marathon course. And all my family was there because, again, like I mentioned, I'm lived in Kansas City. My mom's whole side of the family is from Kansas City, so they were all there watching. It was my debut race as I had no longer had a corporate job. I was doing this for real, and I just put so much pressure on myself that by gosh, probably mile 10, I was in tears and kept stopping, and somehow managed through that race and won it, but it was miserable. And that was one. And then the Marine Corps Marathon in 2019, I won that, but it was the same experience. There was a course record that I was trying to accomplish, and the weather that day was just dreadful. But also, I had put so much pressure on myself because I had told everybody that I was going to try and break this course record. And so that was the only thing I was thinking about in that race. And I was just panicking. And I remember it was just miserable trying to get through that marathon. So yeah, I've won several that I've looked back and I'm like, oh, that was not a fun experience.
Yeah. So we haven't talked about humor yet, which is a big part of your story, and we need to get there. And I really wanted to ask you, what was the breaking point, or what was the inflection point for you, where you went from being under all this pressure to knowing so much more about how to balance intensity with joy.
Fun.
And
Hmm.
yeah, go ahead. So now I already know that the college experience was a big factor. That was a big turning point. And you can get into experiences where you have this wonderful gift, and it'll be completely hidden from you for a while after a bad experience like that.
Yeah,
And then you
yeah.
have to go back to it. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, what's so funny is so after college, that I was like, I'm done with this short distance stuff. I don't like the pressure of the 800 and the mile. That just, like, I just want to be done with it. And so that was when I started to venture into the marathon, just as, like, on a whim, with one of my teammates, one of my friends. And that I had no competitive goals whatsoever. Like, it was just going to complete the distance. So I enjoyed that. And then as I started to kind of chip away at some goals, I started to get a little bit more intense with it. And then certainly when I, went and started running professionally, my first probably 2 years, probably 2 years, I was super intense, and I was just so rigid and so strict on everything. And then it was that injury that was before the London Marathon that we were realizing that I was injured because I was pushing so hard and I was so, like not enjoying anything with it. I wasn't enjoying the process. I wasn't enjoying training. I was just trying to get training done. And that was when we started to incorporate, after that was when we started to incorporate my fun themes and just different ways to approach training. So it was after that, because it was, again, I thought about it. Like, I didn't get to run the London Marathon, and I thought, gosh, I don't want to keep having these experiences, because the same thing happened at the New York Marathon just a few months before. And I was just like, this is not what I thought professional running would be. And I don't want my experience to be this like rigid, intense, so structured, no fun time, because I'm spending hours and hours of my day training. Like, I don't want to do something that I don't love, and I love running. So it really started to make a shift a couple years ago. And there's waves where, yes, I go back through, like, I have to be reminded that you're focusing too hard again, take the pressure off, but it seems to happen less and less frequently and in less and less important races. So I try to incorporate humor and fun as much as I can into my training every day.
Yeah. So was that your coach's idea?
It was kind of both of ours, actually. I mean, that's the beauty of our relationship, is it's so collaborative. There really isn't anything in my training that, there's a few things that she's pretty adamant on that I complete or do or whatever, but for the most part, I mean, it's pretty collaborative. She's always open to, how is this going to make the most fun experience for me? How is this going to motivate me and take me to the next level? If I have questions on why things are the way they are, she's open to having that conversation of making sure I understand what I'm doing and what purpose it has towards the race I'm training for, or something like that. But in terms of the creative side, she's a former art teacher, and she went to Carnegie Mellon for art. And so she's got that creative brain as well. So she's all about the weird, fun ideas that I come up with. That's totally in her realm as well. So it's kind of fun for her to get to incorporate creativity and art and all of these things into a runner's training as well.
Yeah. So I forgot to mention when I introduced you that you are also an artist. And so you incorporate that in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So bringing that a little bit further, how do you coach people? What is your coaching?
Yeah, it's very similar to how Jenny coaches me, in the sense that it's more important for me to make sure an athlete is enjoying the process the entire way and remembering the moments that are the unique, fun, novel things in each day's training that are leading up to the bigger picture. Because again, I mean, I don't really have any athletes that are at my level. I don't have athletes that are at my level, right? Mostly it's moms and dads, or it's just people that are trying to complete their first marathon, or it's high school runners that are working on their mile. And it's trying to help them remember that their journey matters, that their training counts, that they can do big, hard things for them. It doesn't have to be at my level. It can be that next step for them, and showing them that they have that ability. So I try to do that. I'm very energetic and very positive in my training style. So sometimes it takes them a little bit to realize that, I'm pretty high energy all the time, and I'm just excited, like, for them on their journeys, just to be part of it. And so it really fires me up. I get really pumped to help coach them through that. And then again, our number one goal is getting people to the starting line injury free. And so just really being protective and mindful of all the aspects that lead into getting a runner healthy to the starting line.
Yeah. So since you do coaching and people want to hear about that, what is the first thing, how long does it take you to know a client, a prospect well enough to coach them? What is the first thing you do to enter into that process of getting to know them and helping them set realistic goals and continue along with those?
Yeah, we send out when they reach out to us for coaching, we send out a questionnaire that kind of just gives us, their running background. And then we jump on a call with them to just kind of get to know more about what their goals are, get to understand who they are as a person. What else do they like outside of running? That's really important to me as well when we're chatting through things with runners. And then after I build out, I really encourage them, like, let's find that stretch goal. What's your stretch goal? And then let's find those, like, that range of your goals, the goals that are going to be a little bit challenging to hit, and then those ones that are your dreaming big goals. Because I think that that's what's motivated me so much, is that, you know, when I started getting into a little bit more competitive marathons, I did, like, qualifying for the Olympic trials was a stretch goal, but I put it out there, and that was so motivating to have something bigger and longer term out there. So for a lot of people, that's the Boston qualifying time, or that might take a few training cycles to get to. So that's really important. And then just getting to know them as a person. Like, I want you to text me photos of your cat. And I want you to send me photos of funny things that happen on your run. I've got 2 runners right now that love birds. And so they send me pictures of birds from their runs, you know, and, like, it's fun to, like, see what types of birds they are seeing on their runs or things like that. Cause it's like, that's what I like about running. So I want to see how you're enjoying it as well, because I do believe that if you are happy in your training and you're enjoying it and it's building your confidence, that you're going to enjoy the whole process and you're actually going to achieve your goals.
Right. So with me, it would have to be my dog. I'd send you a picture of my dog.
Perfect. I would love that. Yeah, exactly. Any animals are welcome.
Yeah. So now you like to coach running form. I don't know if go ahead. How do you do that? That's a very tricky thing, because actually, if you get into human movement, it's much more complicated, complex than simple ideas that we get about biomechanics. So how do you coach running form? How do you really get people into the learning process, you know, to improve their form in a way that is better for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're so right. There's so many layers to good running form and, you know, proper mechanics and all of that. So, I mean, that's where I've leaned so heavily on Jenny's experience and expertise. And then certainly the help of our strength trainer and our physical therapist, where we all kind of work as a team because I do think it takes, not every runner that we have is going to be utilizing all of us. But certainly most of the time that we get runners, it's the people that are really working on form. It's the people that have had injuries, especially knee injuries, you know, the common runner's knee, all of that. And for us, I mean, it's 9 times out of 10, it's just getting them to understand what their glutes are and how to use them in running, and how to just simply widen their stance. I mean, it's simple pieces if you're just starting at a very basic level. And that's the fun part of it, is helping them get that aha moment of running without pain with this different style. It's with something as simple as using a different muscle group. Because that was kind of what clicked for me when I started working with Jenny and she was working on me with form. Was I had no idea that glutes were so important in running. I thought, you know, you think your legs, so you think your quads automatically. And so just learning really about that and getting people to really work on that piece is usually number one out of the gates. And just that's usually what's going to just help fix all those pieces. And then certainly over time, there's so many other layers that will adjust or fix to help efficiency with running. But it's really a lot of times comes down to, I would say, that piece, and then teaching them how to breathe properly. That's a big one, especially with my younger athletes. There's just like such interesting breathing patterns that are established in running, especially as you're going at speed. So teaching them how to breathe through a speed workout especially is something that's really important, that you might not have thought of. So it's kind of just convincing people to trust the process of, I know this is going to sound weird, that I need you to use your butt and I need you to breathe deeper. But that is usually like kind of what kickstarts the foundation of running form training with our athletes.
Awesome. So there's so much that we can learn about breathing. And I'm just in the process of exploring a lot more of it myself. But do you want to give any specific comments on breathing there?
Oh gosh. Normally, I mean, I have to just teach people to take a lot longer, deeper breaths, even while going at a hard effort. And that's something that's taken just a lot of practice in my own training as well, is trusting that you can continue to take those really big diaphragmatic breaths and belly breaths up into then your chest while going hard and
Yeah.
slowing that breath down. And I think that that just helps with so much efficiency. And honestly, even when I'm on trail running, I think if you can tune into your breath, no matter what distance, speed, terrain you're doing, if you can learn to tune into your breath, that's usually your biggest indicator of your effort. So for me, like I might be running certain splits, but if my breath is telling me that I'm going too hard, I have to adjust and I have to listen to that breath and what that's telling me. And I'm either going too hard or I need to just take bigger, deep breaths and not panic and just trust and settle into that effort zone.
Yeah. So the real shallow, quick breath is like you say, it's kind of a panic breathing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And interesting you mentioned widen your stance, because I think some people have the idea that your stance should be so narrow you're almost tripping over yourself.
Oh no, definitely not. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, very narrow instead of a real conscious awareness of weight shifting from one foot to the other.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So, yeah. So let's go back. You call yourself, or you have called yourself, the funny runner.
Yep.
Yeah. And talk about your performance, the performance side of yourself, and your comedy and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got into acting a few years ago, maybe in 2015, just on a whim, just as because it was something that I always wanted to try. And then it quickly turned into comedy. I really, really enjoyed studying comedy. So I was living in Chicago at the time. So I was studying at Second City and at a couple improv theaters. So whenever I talk about comedy, people automatically think that it's stand-up comedy, but I've never actually done stand-up because that's terrifying to me.
Yeah.
So I do improv comedy and sketch comedy is kind of my background in that. So I had studied and graduated from a writing program at Second City in Chicago, and then moved back to Denver with my now husband and was studying improv here, and then started teaching improv pretty quickly, as well as performing quite a bit here when probably in 2016. And I had this dream that I was going to pursue comedy and running at the exact same time. And as running started to progress, I realized comedy was just taking a lot of my time, and performing late at night was challenging, trying to get enough rest for running the next day. And then certainly as COVID hit, all the theaters shut down last year. So there really wasn't a lot of opportunities for teaching and performing. So my performing has kind of taken a little bit of a backseat in the traditional sense of performing. But on the same hand, I'm like, oh, I'm always out in costumes on my runs, or I'm kind of doing performance art in my races in the way that I approach my racing or things like that. So it's kind of evolved, and it's really like supported my running style and my running career and kept it really fun. I've taken a lot of elements from everything I've studied with comedy and really been able to incorporate those elements into my training.
Yeah. So incorporated into your training. So here's an interesting thing is that to be a professional runner, you have to be somewhat intense.
Mm-hmm.
And at the other hand, I think comedy helps you keep that in balance, because intensity is also absurd.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you said,
exactly.
running is not life. It's not all there is to life. So can you comment on that?
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
But intensity is absurd. How do you
Exactly.
really?
I think you can be intense in your training in the sense of, so with improv comedy, there's no script. So it's all made up on the spot. So that I've really, with my improv background, I've had to learn trust to, like, when I step on stage, it will all come together. And that's exactly with running. When I step out on my workout or when I step out on my race, it will happen. Things come together. I have to trust the skills that I've learned and I've put in place. I'm certainly going to walk off stage and have lots of things that I still want to work on. Same with running, but that has really helped with just trusting that it all comes together. And then with improv, you have to practice patience because you don't know what's going to happen. You have to just be in the moment and you have to be present. So like, I really do think I've been able to fine tune this skill of presence on my run and be able to shift back into the present moment using my improv skills while I'm running, because I know how to identify if I'm thinking ahead, if I'm trying to plan my script on stage. I can't do that. It's gonna hurt the scene. So I got to backpedal and I got to be right back here in this moment. And then, with any of my scripted work, with sketch comedy or any actual acting gigs that I do have a script, it is tuning into that and just remembering that, so that you memorize your script, and then when it comes time to perform it, you just know that you've got that in your system. And that's the exact same with running training, right? Like if you think about like your training, you're writing, you're just practicing your script. Like I'm practicing my race script every workout, and then come race day, I'm like, I don't really have to worry because I practiced my script and I did the best I could in practicing my script. I'm going to go perform. I'm going to go perform that piece and just do what I've been working on. So I think about it in those terms, and it makes it more fun, because I also think about when you're watching a performer on stage or when I'm performing on stage, if I'm not having fun, the audience isn't having fun either. And I really think about that in my race days, because I think about if I'm not having fun on this, people are going to see it, I'm going to feel it. And that's not why I do this. It's not to go out and be ultra intense. I'm there to like get the job done and to race well, but I'm there to enjoy the experience of it. And that's so important to me that I maintain that perspective that I've learned from the theater world and the, acting and performing side as well.
Yeah, so I find that what you're saying there is that they're really the same thing in some ways.
Totally.
Absolutely the same thing. Because
Yep.
when you get on stage, you have to, it doesn't just happen. It happens because you stay focused and present in the moment too. I mean, when you're up there, you're doing what you're doing. And then I wonder also, you do speed work and so on, there's stopwatches involved and things like that. So there's a little level of pressure there, and we have to have that. They call it, eustress.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the level of stress that we need. And so you talked about memorizing the script there, but there's levels of memorizing. In other words, if you had a little stress during training, that's good. If you had no stress at all during training, it wouldn't transfer very well. And the same thing I find, you can sit in a quiet room and memorize something, and then you can get up and try to perform it and it's gone. So there's a level of memorizing where maybe you memorize with other people, rehearse.
Yes.
And
exactly.
And then you have that level of that little bit of stress, or that to memorize something on your own, so it's just there no matter what emotional state you're in, is a high level of work that you've put in.
Yeah, it is. And that's a good point, is memorizing. Like I could visualize my training all day long. I could visualize how I want it to go. But if I don't get out there and practice it and get on the same terrain that I'm looking to race on or things like that, or do a tune-up race as a dress rehearsal, you're certainly right. It's going to be very different than me just kind of running through it in my head, or doing it on a maybe not as intense of a run or something like that. So and then you're right, like thinking of race day as performance day, that you got to put all that hard work out there. You've got the lights, you've got the stage, you've got the costume. I mean, it's all about putting on your race outfit. That's your costume. That's putting you in that character mindset. So sometimes for me, I even channel different characters that I'm trying to embody that energy, because I can do that on stage. I can certainly get into this different character than I would ever become in real life because I'm on stage. So why can't I do that on a race course? You know, no one needs to know it, but just me in my head, as long as I can stick to that during the
Yeah.
race.
Yeah, very, very similar process. So can you give an example of a race where you're racing and you don't even look at your watch and you do very well?
Yes, that's been every single race since the Olympic trials. So the Olympic trials, so the Marine Corps marathon that I talked about before, I was so stressed out. I was looking at my splits every half mile. Like I was obsessed about it. And of course it was a disaster and it was not fun. And so I remember coming off of that race, and thank goodness I had that race before trials, because it was my last reminder that you don't race well when you're under all of this intense pressure of splits. So, so the Olympic trials, I covered my watch. I taped over it, and I wrote a mantra on the tape that said "Surrender to Joy." So I covered my watch for the Olympic trials. I PR'd by 3 minutes, and I just ran. And that was my best performance I'd had. And then after that, you know, I was on the trails so much that I couldn't. Like, trails are just so different. There's no point in my head really of stressing about splits, because you're doing such massive climbs, you've got these crazy downhills, you know, it really is all about effort. So really with trail running, I don't even look at splits, because there's no point. And like, I also have found that I'm surprising myself at my own abilities, because I think if I have in my head that this is where the benchmark is, this is how fast someone can run this hill or this course, then I have that in my head that that's my limit too. But if I just like take that away and I don't even worry about my watch or splits, a lot of times I'm way surpassing that because I took the limit off. So that's actually been really fun for me. And it's really fun. I make it a game. So oftentimes in my workouts, if I have a speed workout, there's certain speed workouts that I am checking splits a little bit more, but there's some speed workouts that I get done and I'm really excited to surprise myself and just see how fast I went. Like, I know I'm in a range, but it's fun to be like, whoa, I didn't even realize I was sub 5 minute pace on that split today. Like, I thought I felt great, but it's really cool to see the 450 pace or whatever it is. So I like to make it a game, because it's like, you know, I don't know. It's just fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you don't look at the watch, I think we're acknowledging that, you know, you could be goal oriented or process oriented, but in the end, process is really all we have.
That's
because
it.
the goal could happen or not happen.
Mm-hmm.
Really don't have total control over that ever.
Yeah. And I really do think the goal is when you're in that last little moment where you're achieving that goal or on your way to achieving that goal, you've got to just surrender, and you've just got to let it happen and trust yourself and just be okay with whatever result is going to happen, because it is something that is really, it is out of your control. And so it's more, for me, it's more about the experience. And I always say that you can't go back and enjoy an experience later. Like, you only get that moment to enjoy it. And that was something I thought about with trials, was I might have one opportunity in my life to get to race trials, and I want to soak up every single moment of it. And so that's where I was like, I don't want to be checking my watch every couple minutes when I could just be soaking up the energy of the course and the race and getting to race with the best in the world, you know? So it's that piece too of remembering that race day is a big deal, but it's not everything, and it's still an experience that we get to have.
I love that. So the experience right in the moment of being, here I am, I'm racing with the best in the world. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And, and maybe we're not racing with the best of the world, but we're in something that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And here we are. And so when it's all said and done, well, for one thing, I love that you use the term surrender there, because when you do that, I think the discomfort melts away, and the joy replaces it. And then you're not holding yourself back.
Yeah. And you don't know where your limits are.
That's right.
Someone else's limits are not yours. So what if you could
worry always keeps you from finding out what your limits really are.
Yeah. 100%.
And so in the end, you see an athlete win an event and you say, oh my, that was beautiful. If it was beautiful for you, that's what you're putting out into the world, I think.
Yes.
So we're not perfect. And I think we need our limitations and we need our struggles and our, if we didn't have those, we'd be even less than perfect. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
If we didn't acknowledge them anyway.
And there's no beauty in perfection, in my opinion. There's more interesting things to see in an imperfect picture or an imperfect show or an imperfect race or whatever it is than something that goes perfectly.
Yeah. The perfection is in the joy you see at the end and the way it's been done. So this is so wonderful. And it's what I really found was great in your story. And I like that you, and a number of people are, but not everyone is, but you really recognize the value of telling your story.
Thanks.
Yeah. And could you give one more word to people about managing to get the best out of life and do the best with yourself? We have infinite potential. How do we become realistic with the process and find out what we really can do? What's one more word you'd like to leave with people on that, maybe?
The biggest thing that comes to mind is to chase your own joy, right? I think for me, for the first couple of years of my racing, I was chasing someone else's joy. I was chasing someone else's vision of their dream or what I thought was supposed to be my path, instead of letting my path come to life on its own, just because I was just exploring and chasing different ways to do things and just listening to my gut. So I think it's chasing what is so authentically true to you and taking the time to listen to what is authentic to you. Like something that comes to mind specifically as an example of that is when I decided that I wanted to train based on different themes that my coach gave me, because that just felt more fun to me in that moment. And I never would have thought that that would have evolved into, you know, what my training has been like right now and how I'm able to enjoy these experiences. And even in the same moment right now, I just started taking vocal lessons in the style of Disney and Broadway, because that is just pulling at me. And it's just that next thing that's like, this is bringing me joy right now. There's no purpose. I'm not sure why right now, but it's calling me to do that. So I'm going to just follow it. And I'm going to follow these trails over here. And I'm going to just try this distance or whatever it is, because it comes together. It's surrendering to the process of it all and of the whole journey, and not writing your book before, like, let your book be written. Don't try to finish your book now. It's like, let the chapters come to life versus trying to like map out your book, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So Brittany, I appreciate it. That's a wonderful gift that you have to share.
Thanks.
And so now I would like you to tell everybody how they can get in contact with you, how they could hire you as a coach, how they could find out more about your story.
Thanks. Yeah, and thank you so much for having me on to share my story. I think it's just a gift, like, that people are willing to listen and that they resonate. So yeah, my best way to follow me is on my Instagram, and I'm at funnyrunner26.2. I'm sharing my daily antics on there. I'm sharing all the things that I love, not only about running, but also the other things in life that I love outside of running. So that's my day-to-day stuff. You can visit my website, thefunnyrunner.com, just for kind of more insights into my races and different things I'm into and different like opportunities that I've been on. And then if you would like a visual representation of this crazy journey, if you jump on YouTube and search the Funny Runner film, a friend of mine, Rob Steger, and I, who is known as Training for Ultra, we just launched a film called The Funny Runner a couple of months ago, and that just kind of captures my story and the past few years that has come together. And then for my coaching, it's Mercuria Running. So it's like Freddie Mercury, but the girl version. So Mercuria Running. We're on Instagram and we are at mercuriarunning.com.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much, Brittany. I appreciate you being on, and I really appreciate your story.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate you. And thanks for having me on.